Hello, I am Zinfogel. Alright boyos, buckle up, we have 3 new sync pairs and 1 new sync grid for December, at least for now, so I figured I would toss them together on one single video. Let's get started. So, as per usual, we are kicking this off with the first unit officially announced, and that's gonna be Gloria and Zacian. And this is a Pokémon striker, so you know it's gonna be good, although I am disappointed this isn't Samacenta. Like, I know Samacenta had no chance to be partnered with Gloria, but they could stop bullying my dude. Like, I remember these memes where there were shelves of Zacian and Samacenta plushies, and the Zacian plushies were always taken while Samacenta was full to the brim. I don't know. That's a tangent you don't care about. Anyway, the kid. The stats are excellent. Really good, actually. This gives competition to Blue and Pidgeot, which is already a very high bar to reach for striker standards. The bulk is phenomenal, you will not have issues tanking sinks or AoE damage, the attack is monstrous, the speed is equally as excellent, you give this some speed buffs and Zacian maintains gauge off by itself, so this is as ideal as a striker gets. You can deliver powerful blows all the time and you can soak up any random damage coming your way. The moves is where it gets a little sketchy. Behemoth Blade is 4 bars strong, but it's a little deceptive because the 1-5 it's weaker than things than Blastburn, like a 1-5 red Blastburn, but it has an innate multiplier. When the enemy accrues a sync buff, it doubles in base power, so you would get a 288 base power move, which is absolute insanity considering the stats. With Behemoth Blade alone and this speed stat, Zacian can become a warfare machine that will break several Geneva conventions. Like, it's insane how potent this thing gets. But only after the enemy stacks a sync buff. Then Zacian will start murdering things with no Carter. The rest of the kit is a little disappointing. We got move gauge boost, which is strange because with this speed stat and Skyla as a partner, Zacian will never have issues spamming Behemoth Blade. So this is more so for utility in case you run out of gauge for whatever reason, or you want to aid a partner who has expensive moves like Reflect or Light Screen. So it's there, I suppose. Player Off gives you some type coverage, although Zacian is not the best fairy type striker. That title belongs to Lycia and Altaria, who have Moonblast, which is about as strong as Player Off, if not equally as strong, I don't know. I don't remember, and they also have a higher special attack stat compared to Zacian's attack stat. So if you want raw fairy type damage, I will go to Lycia because she also gets better multipliers, but it gets a job done if you need a type coverage for Champion Stadium. Although it also gives you some techie utility, you can lower attack by a 10% chance with some accuracy issues, which the grid doesn't fix. Let me just double check that real quick. Yeah, we don't get any player of accuracy, although you do get player of honor roll too, so you have greater chances of lowering attack, but you should always be spamming Behemoth Blade because it's always stronger than player of unless you are dealing super effective damage. But there is that. And the trainer move, it gives you short crit, it raises attack by a couple of stages, and it lowers the sync countdown by 1 stage per use. It only has 1 use though, but this complements with the passives, because here we have a sync burst, and this will refill the trainer move when you sync, and the sync, by the way, also has the same effect as Behemoth Blade. It doubles in power when the target has a sync buff, sort of to mimic the boost in power when Behemoth Blade targets a Dynamax target in the main games. And we also got Fierce Entry too, as well to mimic Intrepid Sword. It raises attack by a couple of stages when you enter the field. So very self-sufficient, and you also get Move Gauge Refresh 4 in case your speed wasn't enough, so you can keep spamming attacks. So this kit is conflicting, because the intention is using Behemoth Blade and then alternate between Move Gauge Boost and the trainer move so you can keep using it efficiently, but when you have stats this good, you only have to use some defensive support, like pair this with Phoebe or whomever and Skyla, and then you can keep spamming Behemoth Blade without having to worry about using the rest of your kit. So on its own, Zacian is a phenomenal striker who requires very little help to get going. Now, the real tragedy here is the grid. There is nothing useful on Zacian is grid. And I mean this quite literally. Like, you could give me a 1-5 Zacian and a 3-5 Zacian, and to me, there is no difference. There are just no multipliers, no means of augmenting your offense. Player of super duper effective one. Oh, funny meme, thanks, I guess. Like, To me, in my humble opinion, the best thing you can do is going for all the Zinc tiles and all the Behemoth Blade tiles, because that is your primary offense. You should be focusing on that, and there is just no other way to surpass your damage ceiling other than going for the innate multiplier that Behemoth Blade gets going. So this is where Zacian pales in comparison to other strikers. There is just no utility on the grid. Like bursting, I mean, I am giving Zacian grid support anyway through Phoebe or Sabrina or whomever. Head start and Adrenaline very rarely come into play. Head start in particular is useless almost. Headstrong, I guess, in case someone tries to use Terrify like multiple times through an encounter, but even then. Crit Ferocity too doesn't even matter, because if you want to raise your own attack by yourself, you have your trainer move that refills when you sink. So this is really bad. Like, if you are pulling for Gloria, you can stop at 1-5, dude. Like, honestly, there is no difference between a fully decked out Zacian and a 1-5 Zacian, at least for the purposes of non-whales. But besides that, ignoring the grid, Zacian is an excellent unit. Right? It's really strong. It certainly gives Steven a competition for its money, although Steven has more utility, like the recuperation too, flinching, things like that. But Zacian, true to its title, will jump into battle and give you excellent results regardless. Okay, I'm gonna give a preference to Brendan now, because this is a highly anticipated grid, and I am pleased to tell you that Sceptile's grid is amazing. He got spoiled really good, and Brendan is now a contender for one of the strongest strikers in Pokémon Masters, especially with the introduction of Grassy Terrain. So let's look at the kit. The stats are very reminiscent of Zacian. They are really good. This is one of the highest speed stats in the game. And the key here is that Brendan is a mixed striker. He has Bullet Seed, Leaf Storm, this is physical, this is special, and the Sync is physical. And this complements the trainer move because it maximizes Brendan's attack and special attack with one use at the cost of 3 bars of move gauge. So that can be a little boresome on co-op, but you also get Dire Hit Plus. So Brendan is a totally self-sufficient striker. He doesn't need any offensive support. He more so wants defensive buffs. The passives are a little meh, nothing really useful that you can count on. So the problem with Brendan is that he has inconsistent moves and no multipliers. Bullet Seed is an attacking move with variable damage. It can attack from 2 to 5 times, and Brendan doesn't get no Carter on his grid, which would fix it to always hit 5 times, which is kind of ironic because people were betting their lives that Brendan would get no Carter, but well. We also have a Leaf Storm, which can miss. It's 90% accurate, and it also sharply lowers your special attack. That's 2 stages. So you're supposed to like refill Leaf Storm every few actions, so you can keep attacking at maximum efficiency, but Leaf Storm can be fixed through lucky skills. You can give him Creamy Cookies, the blue ones, to get Dauntless, and Dauntless prevents any special attack drops from happening, including self-inflicted ones. So with Dauntless as a lucky skill, that is how historically people have been fixing Brendan, so he can always deal maximum damage. But this comes at the cost of not being able to use Critical Strike 2, and it's a little inconvenient. It also means that you have to have the lucky skill for him to be functional. Well, let's look at the grid. The 1-5 grid is whatever. You get all your MGRs and NPRs, the typical deal, and some Sun utility in case you want to pair this with Lyra for some status immunity. This can help on that one full force battle that had the AoE poison gas, so it can always happen again. And you also get the speed in Sun 3. So one thing about Brendan is that he has an insane speed stat, but no way to buff it. And I will talk about the Spin Zone 3 in a little bit, but I want to focus on the 2-5 grid where we finally get some speed utility, which is ironic because we have Inertia and Ramming Speed for some proper multipliers, but Brendan still cannot buff his speed by himself, which it really doesn't matter because you want to pair this with Skyla anyway, but that means that if you want to get your multipliers going, any of your multipliers, including the Sun ones, you have to have a partner help you out, which is fine, like every striker has a fault in some way. And the 3-5 grid is where Brendan just goes insane. He just has had enough bullying, please. Well, the first thing that we gotta look at here is Amped Out 1. This is Olivier's passive where whenever you land a critical hit, it raises speed by 1 stage, so you finally get some offensive self-sufficiency for your multipliers. And a standard grid for Brendan where he doesn't do anything fancy with Sun would be something like this. Unfortunately, there is not enough energy to carry Move Gauge Refresh for Leaf Storm, but you have so much speed that it probably won't be an issue anyway. And you get a couple tiles to buff Leaf Storm's accuracy, so it will never miss. And with the Dauntless Lucky skill, then Brendan will be able to spam strong Sync Nukes and have a very beefed up Leaf Storm this way. So please remember that you always want Dauntless as a lucky skill on Brendan. Like, I'm just taking that for granted, but it's just a thing about his kid that has haunted him since his inception to lucky skills. Anyway, I wouldn't really focus on that for Brendan. What I would actually do is go for the Sun multipliers, because here we get Spinning Sun 3, Healing Sun 1 for some recovery, and Charging Sun 5. So you want to pair this with Lyra or Silver. I think Silver is preferable for some additional offense, because Lyra is a little redundant with Sceptile. You would activate type skills, but Lyra is an offensive buffer. She buffs critical hit rate, speed, special attack, and attack, which would help for ramming speed, of course, but maybe you could get something going with another support. So it's not necessary to carry this with Lyra, because Sceptile is so self-sufficient offensively. That is the point I'm trying to get at here. But if you do something like this, Sceptile would hit some really chunky numbers, like a 50% multiplier with ramming speed on a move as strong as Leaf Storm. Like, most older players will have a 5-5 Brendan, so this is about as strong as some 4-bar moves, especially when augmented through ramming speed. So Sceptile will hit super hard. And on a Sun team comp, Lyra or Silver will be using Sinks instead, so you don't have to worry about inertia and just focus on maintaining your offense with Leaf Storm. And you don't even need a Move Gauge Refresh for Leaf Storm, because Spin Sun 3 will fix all your gauge. Somebody did the math on this, like they cracked the code on Spinning Sun as boost to your gauge. So the way this works is that it augments your raw move gauge. It doesn't affect your speed stat, which is whatever, because your move gauge is derived from your speed stat anyway. But when you have a speed stat this good and you augment it through a support like Lyra or Swanna, then this guy just generates all the gauge you could possibly wish for. Like, it will not have issues spamming Leaf Storm. And then there is some other random utility that I don't know if you want to go for, but it's there. You have a Bullet Seed, a staggering one. Like, okay, I guess you can flinch with Bullet Seed now, which is interesting. I think somebody did some testing on this, and all multi-hit moves always have a 30% chance of proccing their effect, regardless of how many times they hit. I don't know, this is an urban legend that I cannot verify myself because I am bad at science and math, but it's just something I heard. But, well, you can flinch with Sceptile if you want. That's what there is to it. Yeah, there's also some Sync tiles, which are a little hard to get if you go for full self-sufficiency with Sceptile. But you can go for this if you want to augment inertia. That would be a fine idea. And something interesting about the 3-5 grid is that you also have Mindful 2 and Brainy Rush. Brainy Rush is a new passive whereby whenever you sync, it refills your special attack to up to 6 stages. So with these two things, you could ostensibly run Sceptile without Dauntless and go for Critical Strike 2 for an additional multiplier. But I don't know why you want to do this, because you wouldn't have room to go for Charging Sun 5 as well as the Leaf Storm accuracy tiles. But it is now possible to not require the lucky skill for Brendan, so that is nice. But aside of that, this thing became really good. I wouldn't focus on Bullet Seed because without no Carter, this thing is very unreliable, and ramming speed won't really buff it that much anyway. But it is an option if you want to go physical, and I heard the next legendary arena, I won't spoil what it is, but that may or may not be handy to have physical grass type damage. I don't know. Well, case in point, this guy is amazing. If you have the chance to pull him or grid him, please do it. He will give you excellent results, especially if you can go for the Sun utility. It's time to get jolly, my friends. As we suspected from the early holiday banners, we have a new holiday units to scout for, and the first of them is Erika Comfey. And I'm gonna be more succinct about this kid because it does one thing extremely well, and that is tanking and healing. And Erika Comfey is a support sync pair with excellent defensive stats. Great HP, great bulk, Like, honestly, good offenses. I'm not gonna lie, this is chunky. This can deal some decent damage, especially with the Zinc. And this is a speed stat. Give this fast track too, and it will generate gauge, especially because all its moves are very spammy. So the focus of this kit is that we have X Regional, so you can give regeneration to your entire party, and that is amazing because when you have 3 stacks of regeneration, it means that you are stalling for gauge. It has a lot of animations, so that is a deceptive way of giving you move gauge. So that is great, outside of the fact that regeneration is essentially a potion once it wears off, and we got the trainer move. This thing is an AoE potion, and it resets all your stat drops and raises your defense by 1 stage. So yeah, this thing with X-Regen. This is sort of SS Leaf on steroids when you consider the attacking moves. We have Vine Whip, which is a little Mimi, weak. It's a 1 bar, but very spammy. I think it has a slow animation. I haven't really used it. It's available on a couple Egmonts, but I don't recall employing it specifically. Either way, it's decent. 1 bar spam is always good to have. And Draining Kiss. This is an important tool of the kit. Draining Kiss is a really strong recovery move. And as far as I can remember, the only other supports that can restore health are Meilin and Rosa. So you have a 2 bar recovery move with all this regeneration and these defenses, and Erika will not be able to die. Literally, she cannot die. She's unkillable. You just keep regenerating health all the time. You keep spamming Draining Kiss, and Erika will be able to protect your party indefinitely. She cannot die. It's actually kind of crazy the amount of recovery this thing yields. And the Sync move doesn't have any additional effect. Healing Hand 2, so you can remove status conditions from your party, so you have a Cleric available. Stamina Reserve 6 to refill your gauge in case things get a little dicey or you get lazy spamming Drain Keys. Quick Cure to restore any trap. This is handy especially for flinches, so you are guaranteed to keep spamming Drain Keys if you get surprised by any interference. But case in point, this thing is an amazing tank that uses tanks and keeps restoring health. So if you're looking for a tank, this is a great unit to go for. As a buffing unit, I don't really see the utility, although we do have some tools on the grid to accomplish that. The 1-5 grid, I would honestly use a stop here, because you get Drain Keys, MGR, and the Train Move NPR. You get NPR on an AoE potion. What is happening? Although, to be fair, it is a 1-use Train Move, so it has a limit, but you can proc it again. What is happening, dude? And with this is enough, dude. You don't need anything else on Comfey. You spam Drain Keys, go for a little bit of power on that, and keep spamming Drain Keys. The 2-5 grid, you get more Drain Keys tiles and Drain Keys Master Healer 1, so you can restore even more health, and some more tiles for Vine Whip. I would never focus on Vine Whip though. You should always be spamming Drain Keys to keep restoring health. And the 3-5 grid is where you get some actual utility for Comfey, but honestly I will just keep focusing on the tanking role. You can get the Titan Up 4, so you can buff your special defense every time you get hit, so that allows for some defensive self-sufficiency. And you give this the Stoic Tool lucky skill, then you have a tank who raises its own stats and keeps healing like crazy. I cannot emphasize just how much restoration this thing gets going. And then there is the meme tools. Like if I were memeing on Tapu Buli's Legendary Arena, for example, I wanted to use Grassy Terrain, I would go for a Vine Whip grid, because you get 3 MGR1 tiles for Vine Whip on a 1-bar move. That is actually kinda nice. The problem though is that Vine Whip is really weak. Even if you give this a 5-5 with all the tiles, it's still really low base power. So even if you give it offensive support, like this is not for damage. This is merely for the utility and for the chance of proccing the Moogish Refresh on a 1-bar spammer. But even then, you should still be spamming Draining Keys to restore health. I would only use Vine Whip under Grassy Terrain once we get a proper Grassy Terrain unit. HP Advantage 5 is kinda okay, but the problem is that it's so far off the way that you have to sacrifice some tanking tools. Yeah, you would not be able to do something like this. So if you want a raw power, I would just go for the Drain Keys tiles. And if you are so inclined to get a multiplier, give her Critical Strike 2 or whatever and pair her with Sabrina. Impatient 1 is kind of handy if you are not good with timing snipes after sinking. Safety Tether will give you Endure after using a sync move, so It's kind of nice. And the Mad Strength 4 is a meme. if like I mentioned, you don't really want to use Bind Whip. The focus is Drain Case. And because the focus is Drain Case, you cannot really go for this style. Try to move Share Fortune. This is nice, but it's just a bonus. Like getting a random buff for your party is okay. But you don't know what is going to happen of the Share Fortune, so it's not like you can depend your strategy on what is going to happen from that. And you also want to delay your turn move anyway, because this is a one-time utility tool that will give you a full restoration for your party, a party-wide potion. So I think this is a great unit. If you pull the 1-5, it's already a phenomenal tank, but doesn't do much more than that. So take that into consideration. Man, instead of having 6-star EX Swanna, we have this. And the reason I am starting with such a pessimistic statement is this is Skyla and Togekiss. Skyla and Togekiss. Skyla, massive emphasis on the Skyla. When you're using Togekiss, you are depriving yourself of using Swanna, so that comes as a huge opportunity cost, because I don't need to tell you why Swanna is such an amazing unit. So if you're using Togekiss, you have to ask yourself, can I use Swanna and have similar results with a different striker or tech? But if you focus on Togekiss as the main component of your strategy, I think it's good. It's a decent unit. It has decent niches and I like it. So let's look at the kit. If you told me this was a striker, I would not be able to tell the difference because it has self-sufficient buffs. But the problem here is the stats. This reminds me of Mimirola, where you have an average everything, but you have a mediocre attacking stat. That is a problem when you are an offensively focused deck, which is fine. Like, this is functional. Hovering over 300 is more than enough, because you can mitigate this through type skills, through gears, through tiles on your grid, so that is fine. Like, we can make this work. The stats are very decent. The Great Bulk, the attack is fine. The speed is also fine. I would prefer Fast Track 2, but whatever. Then we have the moves in classic flinch hacking fashion. Togekiss with Air Slash, name a greater duo, and Air Slash can be augmented through Skyla's passes because we have a new one here, Super Interference 1. And I imagine this is a combination of Aggravation 1 in addition to Hostile Environment 1, used for the sake of comprising some passives for Skyla. But we don't know exactly how it functions, but if it works the same as Aggravation 1, then you have a 51% chance of flinching with Air Slash, which is reliable, although you have the chance of missing, but whatever, will survive. And we also have Tri Attack. It's a strong 3-bar move. It has decent base power with a 20% chance of burning, paralyzing, or freezing, so you can get any sort of disruption on the target. Freezing would be most ideal to prevent an attack from happening, but well, it works. And Gift of Joy, it raises your speed and critical hit rate for some offensive self-sufficiency, and it has the same side effect of all the presents Rosante's trainer move, where it sharply raises a random stat for your partners. So yeah, not the focus of the kit, but it's a nice perk, so I like it, I enjoy it, and you have 2 uses, so you can spam it to max your critical hit rate, and that is a good quality to have. The Sync, your conditional buff is when the target suffers from a status condition. So the way I am seeing this kit is accounting for Fall, Fighting 5, and Flying Shift, you can turn Tri Attack into a Flying type move. It means that you first want to flinch something to activate Fall Fighting, proc Tri Attack, and with that, use your Sync to get your augmented offense. So, on that sense, Skyla does okay damage, but the multiplier is very conditional. I don't have good opinions about the Harify as a multiplier, but you could be using a trapping partner to have the reliable fall fighting proc, so that is not that big of a concern. So, let's look at the grid. At 1-5, it's super bland, but we're used to this. We get a Freeze Synergy 2, which is a bit of a cruel joke because applying Freeze in this game is extremely difficult and enemies wear off Freeze really quickly. The most reliable applicators are Price and Glacia at a 23% chance each, if I am not mistaken, with Hostile Environment 2 on Glacia and a couple Hostile Environment 1 tiles on Price. Either way, Freeze is really roundabout and hard to use, and it's only a 20% multiplier, so it's not like this is helping you that much. So you also get MPRs and NPRs, the usual. 2-5, we still don't get Air Slash accuracy, so you have to depend on your trainer move to raise your accuracy. But here we get the first important multiplier. We have Flinch Heater 5. This is an augmentation for your sync. If the target is flinching, then you get more damage. So combined with the innate sync multiplier, this is where Skyla can start doing good numbers. And keep that in mind, because on the 3-5 grid we get the almighty Rising Tide. That's right, Octillery is striking again. This is Lyra sync multiplier, whereby the more buffs you stack, the greater your sync damage, and it caps at 14 buffs if I am not mistaken. So if you combine this and the sync tiles, oh boy, Togekiss is now another run-of-the-mill sync nuker that will explode anything when given the opportunity. The 3-5, we also get ramming speed, which is nice because Togekiss can naturally raise his speed. You also get a speedy entry, but I mean the cost, it's only 5 costs, it's not that expensive, so you could go for that if you fall for some of the sinking tiles. But if you go hard for Skyla for the 3-5 grid, you always want this and this, always, all the time. Like the damage you'll be missing otherwise from not picking Rising Tide is honestly like punishable by death. You know, let's be a little exaggerated here. Outside of that, there is also Dirty Fighting 3, so that kind of helps with the tri-attack, but it's so far off the way that I cannot recommend it in good conscience when you have ramming speed as another multiplier, plus Rising Tide, which should always be your priority. Outside of that, Togekiss is not reliable as a striker. All the multipliers are conditional, like flinching is difficult to apply, doesn't last long. You kind of want help from somebody else to apply Burn, for example, just to get your main sync multiplier going, because tri-attack is not reliable at applying any status anyway. So I don't know. I'm not impressed by this, but Rising Tide alone merits consideration. So if you really like a Skyla, hey, go nuts. It's your account. You will pull for your faves if you want. But I'm not particularly impressed. Everything that Togekiss can do can be seldom be accomplished by other gadgets. Like flinching, you have Acerola. Status, there are a mileage of techs who can do that. Sync nuking, there is Koga, Christmas Cybold, so I don't know. But yeah, that's about everything I can say about all of this. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.